Hey everyone, in this video we are going to be looking at how to deploy your Django web application to Google Cloud. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is head over to cloud.google.com and you're going to want to register for the Google Cloud free tier platform. So this will allow you to get $300 in credit for the first 12 months that you have the account. So you won't actually end up paying for anything, it'll all be free. So in this video, I'm going to be walking through Google's own documentation on this. So if you want to follow along with the documentation, I'll link this URL in the description. So before we begin, I want to point out that there are 3 different ways to deploy a Django application on Google Cloud. So in this video, we're going to be looking at deploying Django on App Engine Standard, which is, I'd say, the most common environment to deploy your Django project to, but they also offer App Engine Flexible Environment and Google Kubernetes Engine. So these 3 things are the 3 different options you have for deploying your Django app, and I'd recommend looking into which one is best for your project. All right, so let's begin. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is go to the project selector page and create a new project. So in here, we're going to say create project, and you can name it whatever you want. So I'm going to name this YouTube Django tutorial. All right, that looks good. I'm going to hit create. And that'll take a second or two to create the project. All right, so when the project is created, it will bring you to the home page. All right, that's step 1. Second, you want to make sure that billing is enabled for your project. By default, it is enabled, so I'm not going to go over that. But you can go to this link and double check if you would like to. Third, we need to enable the Cloud SQL Admin API. So Cloud SQL is what we're going to be using for our Django database, so we need to enable that. So we're going to click here, and that will bring us to this page. And here we're going to select our project from the drop-down and hit continue. And that enabled the API. Okay, so once step 3 is done, we can install and initialize the Cloud SDK. So I'm going to click here. This will bring us to the documentation for this. So this Cloud SDK requires Python. So if you don't have it, you're going to want to install that. You can check if you have it by pasting this into your terminal. You see I have Python installed. So once you have Python installed, you can come down here and download the correct version for your machine. So I'm going to download macOS 64-bit. Okay, so once that is downloaded, I'm going to extract it by double-clicking. And then step 4 here, we're going to copy this, paste that into our terminal. This will run you through a little setup configuration. Yes. Yes. We'll hit enter, and there we go. Now, after you run that, we're going to need to open a new terminal so the changes take effect. So I'm going to delete that. New window. Perfect. And then in here, we can run this init line to initialize the SDK. See, so we need to pick the configuration that we want to use. So switch to and reinitialize existing configuration is the default, and that's what we want. So you can either hit 3 or just enter. Now it's going to ask you what account you want to log in with. So hopefully you should see your main Google email here. If you do, you can hit 1 and enter. If you don't, you're going to have to do 2 and enter it. Okay, so now we're going to be prompted to pick our project. So my project is right here, YouTube Django tutorial, and that's number 11. Okay, so now we are all set. We have some updates available, but we're not going to do that. So now we are initialized to our project in this tutorial, or in this terminal. Okay, so that was the before you begin steps 1 through 4. Now we can log into Google Cloud from the terminal. So we're going to want to make sure that we do this in the same terminal that we initialized in. This will bring us to this browser window where you can authenticate through Google. Hit allow. And here we go. We're now authenticated. And back in the terminal, we can see that we are good. Okay, so now we need to download and run our app. So this is where you can either have your own Django project, or this tutorial provides us with a Django project. So in this tutorial, I'm going to use the one they provide, but this is the same as a project that you could create or any other Django project. So I'm going to clone this Git repository, but first I'm going to get into the directory that I want to put it. So I'm going to go into my dev directory, then into my Django folder, and then I'm going to make a new directory. I'm going to call this Google Cloud YouTube, and I'm going to cd into that same directory. There we go. And I'm going to clone the repository in here. This repository is pretty big, so it'll take a little bit of time. Okay, there we go. And next we're going to want to change directory into where the sample Django project is. Perfect. Now if we list everything out, you'll see we have a typical Django project. And this is the same Django project that you will get if you follow Django's own tutorial to start your first project. So just like every Django project, we need to set up our local environment. But before we do that, we need to enable SQL Admin for Google Cloud. Paste that in here. There we go. And next we need to install the Google Cloud SQL Proxy, and this will allow us to connect to an instance of our SQL database. So we're going to copy this curl command to download it. There we go. And now we're going to make it executable by this second command. All right, perfect. And if we actually open this up in a Finder window, oops. So this is where we are. And you'll see when I list everything out, we have all this here. That is the same as this. And this SQL proxy is what we just downloaded, and you can see it's executable. We can run it. All right, perfect. On to the next step. So next, we need to create a Cloud SQL instance. So to do that, we're going to go to this link here. And you can see their suggestion here to name it polls instance. That's because we are making a database for the polls Django app. So whatever you call your app, it's a good idea to name the database something that resembles that. All right, so creating instances before you begin, we have all this. So to create an instance, we need to go to the instance page. Okay, we're going to create instance. You can see there are 3 different database types that we can choose from. Here we're going to use MySQL. Instance ID. we'll paste polls instance there, and then the root password. And I'm just going to keep these defaults. 5.7 is good, and we'll create that instance. Now this will take a little bit of time to create. Okay, so now my instance is finished creating. That took about 8 minutes, so a little longer than expected. It's back here. Next, we're going to run this command. So I'm going to copy this part, and then your instance name goes here. So we named ours polls instance. And there we go. So we get a lot of output, but we're looking for connection name. So if we scroll up a little bit, I believe it's above here. Here we go, connection name. So this is what we need. We'll need that in a little bit. So now we can initialize our Cloud SQL instance. So we're going to use this command right here. And for this, I'm going to open this up in a new window because we need to keep, in a new tab actually, because we need to keep this running. So paste that there. And then your instance connection name. Let's see. So back here, where does that go? Connection name. Here we go, copy. Going to paste that right there. Now if we hit enter, we should connect. There we go, so we're now connected, and you'll see this is continuously updating, and we're ready for new connections. So next, we need to create a Cloud SQL user and a database. So we can do that by here. We can click on our instance. And you'll see on the side here, we have a couple different options, users and databases. So we're going to go to users, we're going to say create user account, username will be Ben, and password, I'm going to grab another random password. Okay, there we go. Make sure allowed any host is selected. We're going to create that. And then we're going to go to database. We're going to say create database. And then for database name, let's see. Okay, it doesn't give us any naming suggestions. We're just going to call this main. Keep these. And we're going to hit create. So here's the database we just created, main, and here is the user we just created. Okay, so next step, we need to configure these settings in our actual code. So we can open up settings.py. So I'm going to open this up in Visual Studio Code. And I'm going to open up my site and settings.py. All right, and scroll down a little bit. You'll see we have a bunch of database settings. So what we need to do now is replace all of these placeholders with our actual data. So for user, that is the user we created. So I named mine Ben. Name is the database name. We named that main. And then your connection name, that is this connection that we pasted here. So we're going to go up here. Let's grab that again. See connection name. Copy that. Paste that here. And now we need the password for the user. So I'm going to go grab that. Okay, there we go. And down here we have the same stuff. So password, name for the database is main, and the user is Ben. All right, so that was this here. We replaced your database user, your database password. We got the values, connection name, we set this, and we set this. So lastly, close and save settings.py. All right, perfect. So now we can run our Django app on our local environment to make sure that everything is working as expected. So to do that, first we need a virtual environment to isolate our Python dependencies from the rest of our machine. So I'm going to say virtual env. Actually, I'm not going to say virtual env because I have Python 2 installed on my machine, so I need to make a Python 3 environment. Here we go. So this is the command that I actually want. Paste that here, env, and you'll see this is a very similar command. Run that. Perfect. Now if we open up Finder, you'll see we now have that virtual environment there, and we can activate that with source env/bin/activate. Now we are inside the virtual environment, and we need to install everything in the requirements.txt file, which I believe is just Django. So let's do that. We're installing Django 3.0.6 and a couple other things. Okay, perfect. So now everything is installed. Now, if you run this command here and you create a virtual environment with Python 2, when you run this command, it will fail to install Django because Python 2 does not work with Django 3.0.6, so we'll be able to find it. So if you get that error, can't install Django with this version, that means you have the wrong Python version for your virtual environment. So just be sure to run this command here instead of this command. All right, so now that we're done there, we can make our migrations. So we'll run the python manage.py make migrations. Okay, no changes. We'll run it again and specify the app name, which is polls. There we go. And then we will migrate those changes. All right, looks like everything is good. Okay, and once all this is good, we can run the server with run server. There we go. Let's go to the URL. And perfect. We get no polls are available. And if we go back here, the page displays the following text: no polls are available. So that is good. Okay, now we're going to stop this environment, and we need to log into the admin console. So for that, we need a super user. So we're going to use python manage.py create super user. And this will prompt you to enter in some information. So I'll leave that as my username. Put my email, and I'll make a password. All right, perfect. So now when I run the server, I can log into the admin console with that information. So if I go /admin, I can log in. There's my username. And log in. Perfect. Now I'm here, and I can do some stuff here if I want to, but I'm not going to. So that works. Perfect. Stop the server. Okay, so next we need to display, so next we need to actually deploy our app to the App Engine standard environment. So before we do that, we need to collect our static, so the static files like CSS and images load correctly. So we can use python manage.py collect static. There we go. And finally, we can upload our app by using this command, gcloud app deploy. So we're going to copy that and paste. And should give us a little output. Here we go. So we need to select where we want our App Engine application located. So which region? We'll say I'll just do US Central, which is 13. Now we wait for this to be created. So we'll just hit yes here. And now we wait. So in the meantime, this command right here is what you're going to use each time you want to deploy. So whenever you make a change to your Django app and you want to deploy that new version, you bundle everything up, make sure to collect static, and then use the same command. But once you do that, the previous instance of your app will still be there. So one thing to make sure is to delete that instance so you don't get charged for that. All right, so I'll let this do its thing, and I'll see you when it's complete. Okay, so there we go. Looks like everything completed successfully. And you can see to view your application in the web browser, you can run this command right here, or you can just simply go to the target URL and copy and paste this in. So I'll just run this command here, gcloud app browse. And that should take us to our site. All right, there we go, perfect. So we are getting no polls are available. And you see, we are now at this URL here. And if we go /admin, should be able to log in with our super user. So let's try that. There we go. So we're able to log in. All right, so that's it for this video. If you enjoyed, please give it a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.